Hi, I'm Deinera Exner-Cortens, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Faculty of Social Work in the University of Calgary. And today we're going to be learning about social-emotional learning. What is it, and how does it support safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful learning environments? And we're going to think about that through bullying reduction. How does social-emotional learning support bullying reduction, and in turn, support safe and caring environments? So just to give an overview of what we're going to talk about today in order to help us know where we're going, we're first going to learn about what social-emotional learning is. We're then going to briefly touch on what safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful learning environments are so that we're all on the same page. We'll then think about how bullying can undermine safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful learning environments. And lastly, we'll think about how social-emotional learning can support safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful learning environments through bullying reduction. So what is social-emotional learning? Today we're going to use the definition from CASEL. CASEL is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning and is really a leader in this area. So CASEL outlines 5 competencies that make up SEL, and we're going to use those as our definition today. So in general, SEL, or social-emotional learning, is defined as the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, to set and achieve positive goals, to feel and show empathy for others, to establish and maintain positive relationships, and to make responsible decisions. So we're now going to walk through each part of that definition. So the first 2 components of social-emotional learning, as talked about by CASEL, are self-management and self-awareness. So self-awareness is the ability to recognize your emotions and thoughts and how those emotions and thoughts impact behavior. So that could be accurately assessing your own strengths and limitations or recognizing how you're feeling today. Self-management is the ability to regulate your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors in different situations and settings. So whereas self-awareness has to do with recognizing those emotions, self-management has to do with controlling or regulating your emotions. So that could be not eating the cookies, which would be impulse control, or setting and working towards a goal like an academic goal. So self-awareness and self-management both draw on emotions and thoughts, the difference being self-awareness is about recognition, while self-management is about control. So we've talked about the first 2 competencies. The second 2 competencies are social awareness and relationship skills. So social awareness is the ability to take the perspective of others, to show empathy, and to respect diversity. And so social awareness would be important for something like offering emotional support to a peer, and we're going to talk about that a bit later. Relationship skills are the ability to establish and maintain healthy and positive relationships. And by healthy relationships, we mean relationships that are mutual, trusting, respectful, and have positive communication. And so to be able to have a healthy relationship, students need to be able to communicate clearly, to listen actively, to cooperate, to negotiate conflict well, and to be able to seek and offer help. So social awareness and relationship skills also draw on a similar skill set. In order to have a healthy relationship, we need to be able to take someone else's perspective, we need to be able to show them empathy, and we need to respect diverse thoughts, opinions, and beliefs. So those are the first 4 components. The last component is called responsible decision making. So responsible decision making is the ability to make constructive and respectful decisions. So it's actually a process. It includes being able to weigh pros and cons, think through consequences of your actions, as well as the impact of those actions on both yourself and other people. So we've talked about the 5 key competencies of SEL, which are self-awareness, self-management, social skills, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. We're now going to think about what safe and caring environments are so that we can understand how SEL supports those environments. So what are safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful learning environments? I'm drawing this from how it's measured in the accountability pillar as well as the recent amendment to the Education Act. So generally, safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful learning environments are those environments where students feel safe, where they learn the importance of caring for others, where they learn to respect others, and where they are treated fairly. They're also environments where healthy and respectful relationships are fostered, where positive mental health is promoted, and where diversity is respected, celebrated, and understood as a strength. So if we think back to those first 5 slides, these really align with those SEL competencies. And so respect for diversity, for example, is fostered by social awareness, and healthy relationships are fostered by relationship skills. But it's difficult to do a one-to-one alignment between components of safe and caring environments and between SEL skills. Instead, we can think of SEL skills as providing the foundation of a safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful environment. So by having students have competencies of social-emotional learning, those competencies we learned about previously, we can provide a foundation that promotes respect for diversity and a sense of belonging and promotes a positive sense of self. In turn, that foundation of SEL competencies is supported by a whole school approach that includes support for and the teaching of SEL skills as part of practices, policies, curriculum, and through partnerships. So we've talked about what SEL is, and we've talked briefly about what safe and caring environments are and how SEL can support that. We're now going to talk about how bullying can undermine safe and caring environments, and then how SEL can serve to reduce bullying so that we can restore safe and caring environments. So in her talk in this series, Dr. Tracy Vaillancourt talked about that rates of bullying in Canada are high compared to other OECD countries. So approximately 1 in 6 males and females in middle school will experience bullying twice a month or more at school. And creating safe and caring environments is a key part of Alberta's bullying prevention strategy, but bullying itself undermines the ability of schools to be safe and caring for all students. There's lots of ways that we can think about how bullying might undermine a safe and caring environment, but I'm going to talk about 5 today. So first, bullying impacts students' abilities to feel safe at school. Students who are bullied tend to feel more unsafe at school and like they don't belong, and so that directly undermines a school's ability to be safe and caring for all students. Bullying is also a relationships problem. It's one that occurs in the context of relationships and one that's destructive to healthy and safe relationships. So in a school where students are experiencing bullying, their ability to experience healthy and respectful relationships, a core piece of safe and caring environments, is limited. As Dr. Vaillancourt described in her talk, bullying also interferes with positive mental health, including the ability to feel emotionally, socially, and psychologically well. Since having students be able to achieve positive mental health in the school setting as part of safe and caring schools, that too can be undermined by bullying. Fourth, bullying is considered as a human rights violation. Under the UN Declaration, every human has a right to life, liberty, and security, as well as the right to not experience cruel and degrading treatment, and bullying undermines that. Since children and youth are vulnerable, adults also have a responsibility to uphold their rights and protect them from bullying. So when we think about safe and caring schools, bullying undermines students' ability to feel that their rights, values, and responsibilities are respected. And finally, safe and caring schools, as we've talked about, are inclusive and celebrate diversity, seeing it as a strength. However, we know that diverse children and youth, including youth who are gender or sexually diverse, ethnoculturally diverse, and students with disabilities, are disproportionately likely to experience bullying. And so the bullying of diverse children and youth undermines a school's ability to show that diversity is a strength. So in sum, bullying in a school can undermine a school's ability to be seen as somewhere that is safe and caring, welcoming and respectful by all students. In terms of thinking about how to prevent bullying and then in turn promote safe and caring environments, a recent move has been to consider how those social-emotional competencies that we talked about at the beginning can lead to bullying reduction and thus promote safe and caring environments. And so we're now going to use bullying as one way to understand how social-emotional learning can support safe and caring environments. And what I'm going to talk about are general principles. There are evidence-based resources that look specifically at how to promote SEL in order to reduce bullying, but today we're just going to think through some general principles. So how can social-emotional learning support safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful learning environments? We're going to think through this using those 5 competencies that we talked about at the beginning. So first, to be able to handle conflict well, youth need to be able to both recognize and manage their emotions. So those are those competencies of self-awareness and self-management that we talked about at the beginning. But we know that both bullies and victims have difficulty with emotion regulation. Youth are more likely to bully others if they lack emotion regulation, so that's that self-management piece. And highly emotional reactions by victims increase the likelihood of experiencing bullying, so that's that self-awareness piece. So if we can promote the SEL competencies of self-awareness and self-management, youth can learn to better control and recognize their emotions, which can lead to reductions in bullying and victimization, thus supporting safe and caring learning environments, particularly the promotion of healthy and respectful relationships. So the second thing we talked about was social awareness. So recalling that this is the ability to show empathy, to respect diversity, and to take other people's perspectives. And so social awareness is really key to creating learning environments where students feel cared for and respected. So empathy, or the ability to identify, understand, and respond to how someone is feeling, is a foundation for socially responsible and socially aware behavior. So for example, we know that empathy is an important predictor of the use of active bystanding behaviors or defending behaviors. So instead of passively observing bullying or even participating, youth who are higher in empathy are more likely to stand up for a victim. And so that's really important when we're thinking about bullying reduction. We also know that perspective taking, or the ability to understand what someone else is feeling, is linked with offering more emotional support to peers. So this isn't surprising. If we can think about and understand how our peers are feeling, we're probably going to be able to better offer them meaningful support after they've experienced victimization or generally. So promoting social awareness is implicated in how caring and respectful a learning environment seems and can impact bullying through the actions of peers. So relationship skills include the ability to maintain and sustain friendships. This is important for both bullies and victims, but we know that for victims especially, they may have difficulty making friends and may need extra help building the skills needed to positively communicate with peers. So those are those relationship skills. We know that having fewer friends makes children easier targets, but that having high-quality friendships is protective against victimization. So in a meta-analysis of 153 studies that looked at predictors of bullying, the two strongest predictors of who was bullied were peer status, so that includes things like the quality of your relationship with peers, and social competence, or your social skills with peers, so directly tied to relationship skills. So if we can improve relationship skills, that social-emotional competency, we can also reduce victimization. Relationship skills also promote active bystanding, or that defending behavior, both by making students more likely to step in and defend, and also by giving them the skills needed to seek help from an adult. So in sum, although youth may be more vulnerable to bullying if they lack relationship skills, if we promote this competency, we can both reduce youth's likelihood of being bullied and also promote the skills of defenders, or youth who would defend them, and in that way contribute to safe and caring environments. And lastly, decision making. So in order not to bully, students need to be able to accurately assess the situation, so understanding the true intent of the other student's behavior. So perhaps their backpack was left in the aisle, not because they really wanted to trip you, but understanding that it was probably an honest mistake. And also be able to evaluate possible and likely outcomes, so thinking through the consequences as well as the impact of that behavior. Social problem solving is also important for victims so that they can make a decision to choose more active coping strategies like talking to someone about the problem. And to that end, in a study with Canadian students in grades 1 to 6, Mahadi Wilton and colleagues found that victims were much more likely to use something they called aggressive coping style. So that's using physical aggression or verbal aggression or venting. And that coping style, that aggressive coping style, was 13 times less likely than problem solving. So for example, making a decision to take action, doing something active, to de-escalate a bullying situation. So by teaching responsible decision making, by building that competency, we can help victims to both better cope with and potentially shut down a bullying situation. And so in that way, responsible decision making promotes safe and caring learning environments by giving bullies the skills they need to make it less likely they'll bully, as well as by giving students who are victimized the skills they need to cope with and potentially avoid bullying situations. So just to summarize what we've talked about today, We talked about that social and emotional learning is made up of 5 key competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social skills, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. We talked about that social and emotional learning is a foundation for creating environments that are safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful, but that bullying undermines a school's ability to provide those environments. However, by promoting the competencies of social and emotional learning, we can help reduce bullying and thus promote environments that are safe, caring, welcoming, and respectful. Well, thanks, and I can take any questions.
It's okay. I was just thinking, instead, would you mind just doing, just saying thanks again?
Sure.
Like, we'll just, we'll just pretend like there are no questions.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
that's okay.
Okay. Do you want me to just go back to the summary slide? Or which slide do you think?
Yeah, just hold this on the screen. We're not going to even do a slide.
Oh, okay.
It'll just be you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we'll just, so after you finish that slide before,
Mm-hmm.
we'll insert you now saying,
Okay.
thank you so much, and I don't know if you want to provide your information or,
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
put that on the screen, so yeah, you can just say,
Okay, great.
thanks.
Yep.
Am I awesome? Yeah.
Likely. Okay. Thank you so much for your time, and please don't hesitate. Let me do it again. Okay. Thank you so much for your time, and please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions about what I've talked about today.